All right. Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Allen Ulrich, here with Bob Rose. How you doing tonight, Bob?
Doing pretty good, Alan. How are you? I know you got a full house going.
Yeah, so we're running a little late today because my son's moved back with us. So now I've got my son, my daughter, my dad, my wife, and I, and two dogs in this house. That's what happens when I guess, invest in your house and fix it up, make it a little bit bigger, create more room, and yeah, that's what happens. So, anyway, Bob, the mini camp is starting today. Well, tomorrow, I think. I think it's tomorrow through Friday. So, what do you expect out of this mandatory mini camp? I mean, I know it's all shorts and shells, but I mean, are you expecting? I don't know. See kind of, see a preview of what this offense could look like. Is that a good assessment?
Yeah. Hopefully, we see some smooth offensive transitions. You and I have had this conversation along with Sean Williams for several years now. Since the rule changes many years ago, you can't expect, not even in training camp, to see many 11-on-11 drills. You won't see hardly any contact at all. So I look more for one-on-one matchups. How are how are the young receivers, Cedric Wilson, the new addition, Bub Means, those guys? How are they going to fare up against the cornerbacks, of the Saints? The Lattimore, Taylor, Adebo. How's McKinstry, the rookie cornerback, going to fare against Olave and Shaheed? How smooth do the passing plays look and the running plays look? Again, there's not going to be any contact here, but you want to see, especially with an entirely new offensive staff, you want to see a lot of smooth plays, a lot of smooth transitions, into 2-minute offenses, goal line drills, things like that. So, more specialized football. I think is what you expect to see out of mini camp, and a lot out of training camp too. But it's the specialized football that, for the most part, has kept the Saints out of the playoffs the last 2 or 3 years. So that's the areas where they need to improve on the most on both sides of the football.
Absolutely, and my thing is, I want to see those one-on-one matchups. Oh, crazy George! I want to see those one-on-one matchups. I want to see Kamara and what they do with Kamara in this offense. We've seen a lot of Taysom Hill, and I think the stories have been coming out. Taysom Hill is really going to be doing some things that he hasn't done yet, which is amazing to think about. When you think about he's returned kickoffs, he's played quarterback, fullback, tight end, wide receiver, kick returner, all these things. What else can they do with him? But it seems like, and this is kind of where I want to go with this tonight, it seems like this coaching staff really is embracing the Saints' weapons and have a plan for everybody that's involved in this team versus, I don't want to say Carmichael was just throwing shit at the wall to see what stuck, but a lot of times it seemed like that.
It certainly felt like that, with Pete Carmichael, especially the last 2 years since Sean Payton's departure, and the offense was basically his. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say Pete didn't know what he was doing, but he certainly seemed out of his element. And I've always felt like, in the last 2 years have kind of proven this, that Pete Carmichael is a valuable guy to have on your staff back in the shadows. Help me put together a game plan. Help me identify weaknesses in the defense that we could take advantage of. Help me do this, help me do that, but more of a complementary piece to the whole Breeze, Peyton system. Clint Kubiak, on the other hand, Jordy Hultberg and I talked about it this afternoon. Clint's probably looking at this as a stepping stone. He's been an offensive coordinator before, but he's almost always worked for offensive-minded coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's not. So this offense is entirely his. In today's day and age of the NFL, an offensive coordinator can become the hottest head coaching candidate just like that. And, Clint's still a young guy. I think, frankly, that's what he's looking at. To take that next step, he's got to have success in New Orleans. I've always applauded the Kubiak Shanahan system, going all the way back to the Denver Elways, and Mike Shanahan was the quarterback coach under Dan Reeves. Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak, Kyle Shanahan, now Clint Kubiak, as you said, it's football 101. When you boil it down to the simplicity of things, but too many coaches in any sport at any level tend to outsmart themselves. Not Clint. This system likes to highlight the players' strengths and use them as much as possible to exploit weaknesses in a defense.
Yeah, and that was something I was going to go into because, I think Carmichael is the kind of guy that can design an offense and knows what he wants to do, but the job of being the play caller is so difficult, and I think that was the biggest problem for Carmichael is he didn't know when to call certain plays.
Yeah.
He was like that guy who plays Madden and always plays against the computer and plays at the rookie level, just calls the same 4 or 5 plays over and over and over because they work so well. I'm going to run Texas this time. I'm going to run, a wheel route. I'm going to run this. And eventually human beings figure it out. And I think, sometimes he got in trouble early. So that's why the Saints offense seemed to struggle until the second half and then suddenly started playing better. Mm-hmm. And then other times it was like he got off to a fast start. Then he hit that lull in the middle. And I think so much of it was for when Peyton was there, Sean Payton and Drew Brees really made that offense, I don't want to say easy to call, but easier to call because Drew had his ideas. And we've seen the clips from Monday Night Football where Drew, Sean, and Pete are in the room and they're going through the plays. And Pete's like, marking plays down. And Sean's reading plays off, and Drew's like, I like this play, I like this play, I like this play, I like it in this situation, I like to do that. And he's putting the notes down. So basically, Sean and Drew are telling Pete right there, these are the plays I want to call at this point in the game. And I think he was missing those two people, and that was showing up in the game plans each week because everyone's looking at him. And he's just like looking at his card going, let's run this again because it worked last time.
Right.
The other thing I really like is when I keep hearing over and over and over again is attention to detail. If there was something that drove me crazy last year and the year before, it was a lack of attention to detail.
On both sides.
On both sides. Yeah, exactly. On both sides of the ball. And I felt like they weren't holding enough players accountable. Now people would say, yeah, like Derek Carr, you should have held him accountable a lot more. Yes, but at the same time, Derek Carr was justified at some of the things he was pissed off about with the receivers because this was something that some of the commentators said last year, when Sean Payton and Curtis Johnson were there, the splits for the receivers weren't at 12. They weren't at 11. They were 11 3/4. And you line up at 11 3/4 because you're running this route precisely. And it's got to be, you don't round it off. You are cutting at this point because you had a short quarterback who was throwing to a spot on the field. You've got a taller quarterback, but you've got to go to those exact spots because Carr in his head is going, this is the landmark, I'm throwing it to here. And if you round it off or run it short or cut underneath, then it looks like either Carr's going to throw an interception, it's an incomplete pass. Who the hell is he throwing to? Or the ball is behind the receiver or in front of the receiver, and people screaming, "See, he can't even hit a guy in stride." And I like this. I really like the things that I'm hearing. And yeah, people are going to say you're gaslighting the fans and all that other stuff, but I really like all these things that I'm hearing because it's like you heard everything the Saints fans were saying. Not enough attention to detail, focus, hold people accountable, and use the weapons that you've got in the best way you can use them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I don't know Clint Kubiak well enough as a person, as a coach, yet to know if he is this way, but I have a feeling he is. One of the things I loved about Mike Shanahan, and it's one of the things I loved about Sean Payton too. Some coaches, a lot of coaches, again, at any sport, any level, they'll have their people run a play until you get it right. Mm-hmm. Well, the Shanahan Payton way of thinking is, no, we're going to run this play until we get it right 10 times in a row. And until we get it right 10 times in a row, we're going to keep running it if it's going to be in our game plan. I suspect that Clint Kubiak is the same way. Gary was. And that again, that's the kind of thing that we saw missing, as you pointed out, from the Carmichael offense. The last couple of years is, and it is that attention to detail where it almost feels like a half-ass way of doing things. As soon as we get this play right, time for a water break, boys, or we'll move on to something else. Because that can win. You can win the lottery one time and you're set for life, but that's not the way the NFL works. You better be able to accomplish the same play over and over and over and over again. You perfect it before you move on to the next phase of your game plan, to the next page of your system, whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. No, I mean, that was, again, it's that attention to detail and holding people accountable. And, there were some times that Carmichael would call plays and stuff would work, then they abandoned it. They wouldn't go to it again. And it drove me crazy. Like putting Olave in the backfield, and doing a swing pass. I mean, the defense couldn't account for it. They weren't stopping him. And then but the Saints stopped doing it. They're just, it's those kind of things too. I mean, and I just feel like, and this is when I was frustrated because I know the Payton offense works. I know it can work because you've seen it work. I've seen it work for 30-something years among all the different NFL coaches. So many people do what Sean Payton does. It's just you have to know when to call those plays and when to get those matchups. And against Indianapolis last year was the first time I felt like I was looking at a Sean Payton called game. And it was the only time I felt like that the whole season. And it's just, it's all that kind of stuff that really, that's why I'm looking forward to seeing someone different call these plays, because I think this group has a much better feel for a game plan and executing a game plan and calling plays. Because, going back to Bill Walsh used to say he could call an entire game because, the first 10 scripted plays and became the first 15 scripted plays, then 20 and 25. Well, Bill Walsh could call all 85 or 80 plays that an offense would run if the players would just execute it properly.
Yeah.
Because he knew based on the situation how many yards I'm going to get on this play, how many yards I should get on this play, and this is how I'm going to call this game. And I think that's what you're going to see now with Kubiak, is he can call a play and put these people in positions to be successful.
Yeah, and like you said at the onset of tonight's show, hopefully he's going to use, and there's no evidence that throughout his career that he won't, but hopefully he's going to use the players to their best strengths, which is something, and this part always boggled my mind with Pete Carmichael. It's not something that he did. The last couple years, if I have a running back like Alvin Kamara, and I'm going to give him, let him, run the ball 20 times in a game, you damn well better believe that 16 or 18 of them aren't going to be into the gut of the defense. If I have Rashid, right, if I have Rashid Shaheed, an all-pro punt returner, whose first touch as a pro, by the way, was a jet sweep that went 44 yards for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. I'm going to use him more than just on clear out routes and deep balls. I'm going to throw the ball to him on wide receiver screens. I'm going to give the ball to him on jet sweeps. 11 carries in 2 years, by the way. That boggles my mind. I'm going to move a guy like Taysom Hill all around the formation instead of only as a wildcat quarterback or only as an inline tight end. Juwan Johnson, I'm going to move him in motion, going to put him in the slot, going to put him outside. Let's see if you want to, defense, let's see if you want to roll the dice and move a linebacker out wide to cover Juwan Johnson. You mentioned Chris Olave, wheel routes out of the backfield. Try defending. Try defending an alignment, with Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed as your sidecars in your shotgun, Alvin Kamara split out wide, and Juwan Johnson, Taysom Hill in the slot. I'm not going to line up every way like that, but I line up once or twice that way. I want to see how you adjust to it, and you better damn well believe I'm going to take advantage the next time I decide to line up that way.
Right. I mean, and that was the thing. That's what made the San Francisco offense so damn deadly, was because it was multiple alignments, multiple personnel, shifting players, putting people in position. I mean, you're running little wheel routes and little running plays and stuff with McCaffrey, then you could slip in Eli Mitchell, and he does a lot of the same things. Deebo Samuel, they did so many things with Deebo Samuel. And, you're throwing to receivers like Jennings, who is not a great receiver, but it worked for what their scheme was because of the weapons they had. It just, I don't know. I'm excited about that part. The thing I'm worried about, of course, is the offensive line. And we won't see whether or not this offensive line has gotten better until training camp.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic about it because, I thought that Doug Marrone was part of the problem. It's not that I think this offensive line is a bunch of all pros that have just been held under by coaching, but I can't imagine the offensive line being as bad as it is, given the number of players who are first-round picks or second-round picks. They can't all be misses.
Right.
I mean, we were hitting on third, fifth, and seventh rounders. You can't tell me that we can't hit on first and second rounders. I think it was really that lack of attention to detail, lack of focus. The line took forever to develop any kind of chemistry. Mm-hmm. So I just feel like this team could be better, as I'm looking forward to that. I think those things will work. Go ahead.
No, I agree with you about the offensive line, and I'll even go one step further. We're really not going to see how the offensive line is going to start to gel, until those scrimmages with the 49ers in the preseason games, because of the collective bargaining agreement, there's so little contact in training camp that we don't see the old Oklahoma drills. We don't see too many of the one-on-one opportunities in the trenches, and we don't see much contact in 11-on-11 drills.
Yeah. I mean, in shorts and shells, you really can't touch anybody. You can't block, you can't rush. Really, I mean, the defensive ends rush, but they don't even go and touch the quarterback. They just record it as a sack because Seattle got in a lot of trouble a few years ago for having too physical of
Mhm.
practices. Um, so let's look at the defensive side. So today, Marshawn Lattimore came back, met with the media, and shocker, he seems to be bought all in. He he said a lot of positive things about I hope I get healthy. I could be healthy all year long. I want to contribute, help this team win. Didn't talk about wanting to be traded or did they draft somebody who's going to come and take my job or anything like that. Very positive, very uplifting, which explains why Saints Twitter was so quiet.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, and all along, as you've been telling people, I've been telling people, Brendan has been telling people, this was never a story. Marshawn Lattimore was never, ever going to get traded. Did they take, did Mickey Loomis, Dennis Allen take a couple calls regarding the issue? Probably, because that's just what happens in the NFL. Almost every player gets inquired about. Every season, every off season, every trade deadline. But again, the reality was, and I've been saying this since January, Marshawn Lattimore was not going to get traded. Marshawn Lattimore was not fed up or any kind of discord with Dennis Allen or anybody else in the organization. This was not a Michael Thomas situation. We knew the writing was on the wall there. 2 years ago, if we're being honest with ourselves. Lattimore, that just isn't the case. Marshawn wants to win, sure. But the injuries he had were legitimate. I can't see any reason in the world why he would have had a problem with Dennis Allen, the head coach, when he had such a high opinion of Dennis Allen, the defensive coordinator, and Dennis Allen, the former defensive back coach. Whether we as fans, as local media, whether we want to hear it, whether we want to admit it or not, the reality is these Saints players do not have a problem with Dennis Allen or any other member of the coaching staff. And I think that was made clear by not only Marshawn Lattimore, but also Alvin Kamara.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it was one of these things that that Saints fans kind of ran with as more or less their what they think. I guess that fantasy of what they thought was going on in that locker room, what they thought was going on, what they kind of wanted to see go on.
Mm-hmm.
That there were fans last year on Saints Twitter at the end who really wanted to see this out and out revolt by the players on Dennis Allen to kind of force the coach's hands or kind of force the ownership and the front office to say, you know what? It's obviously he's lost the team. We have to let him go because he doesn't have any respect from the fans and any respect from the players. It's time for him to go. And they would read into interviews and comments from players and go, yeah, look, so-and-so's not buying into this, Cam Jordan's, kind of gave a lukewarm defense of Dennis Allen about one thing, but not in general.
Mm-hmm.
Their only complaint was, and this was something that Sean Payton was very good at, and I think that a guy like Dennis Allen is not very good at. And I want to get into more Dennis Allen in a minute, but there's the guy, John Minicamp, former Saints owner, guys. That was the problem number one. He was part of. I don't know how to explain other than that he really had his finger on the pulse of the team that Dennis Allen just doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So when it came to things like, okay, I'm gonna go when we're playing the Cardinals, I'm gonna give Tim Hightower a lot of touches and let him score a touchdown against his old team. When we're playing, when we're doing other, we're playing one of our former players. Ted Ginn. Ted Ginn Jr., when you're playing the Carolina Panthers and they let you go, we're going to make them run a go route. We're going to run a go route on them and score a touchdown because I want them to know that you haunt those guys and they know they made that mistake. Well, Juwan Johnson, essentially with that touchdown at the end, was kind of like that thing that Peyton would have done. Peyton would said, you know what, you scored 17 touchdowns last year. You haven't scored a single one for us this year. Yeah, it's a blowout, but I'm going to give you the ball at the goal line because you deserve it for sacrificing your own stats for the betterment of the team. And Carr didn't get that. Not Carr, I'm sorry. Allen didn't get that. Allen didn't figure that out. So the team took it upon themselves because they're leaders, took it upon themselves and did it for them. I didn't agree with what they did from the standpoint of you don't do it out the victory formation. But I understood why they did it. Just Allen made it a lot worse by apologizing to a coach who was getting fired.
Yeah.
You know, the clip I played, if Sean Payton was the head coach and he did that, and they said, did you deliberately run up the score on this team? And I played Jack Nicholson from A Few Good Men. Did you order a code red? You're goddamn right I did. You know, that would have been Sean Payton's response.
Yeah.
And the fans loved him for it. Allen's not that kind of guy. So, you know, you made a bad situation worse by doing that. And we talked about that way back when, but you made a bad situation worse because you fed into the whole Allen doesn't have control of his own team. They don't respect him and all these other things. And it really wasn't about respect. It was about, hey, this guy sacrificed for us. We owe it to him. You need to start seeing that. So, I mean, I know we talked about this when it happened, but I mean, you think that's a fair assessment of Allen?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And that's Dennis Allen seems anyway. And I've sat in on interviews with him. He seems like a genuinely nice guy. Sean Payton, as much as I love Sean Payton as a coach, as much as I love Sean Payton's attitude, as much as my own personality is like Sean Payton, Sean Payton is kind of a dick.
Yeah.
And you can take the words kind of out. And yeah, I realize what I just called myself in the process, and I accept that fully. Saints fans have to realize that the difference in personalities that you're getting. And like you said, the players are the ones that took it upon themselves. Completely agree with you. Shouldn't have come out of the victory formation. That part was a little bit classless. But I other than that, I had no problem with Jameis Winston saying in the huddle, guys, we're going to give Jamal his touchdown and, just come out lined up however other way you want to line up other than the way you did. And the only way, Dennis Allen attempted to throw his team under the bus, which to me is just a gutless move. And I may never have respect for Dennis Allen because of that. That's not saying I don't think he can be successful as a head coach. It's certainly not saying I'm not rooting for him to be successful as a head coach, because media or not, I'm still a fan at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I want this team to succeed, whether I believe that this man is the right move, the right head coach for it or not. And I think it was also very telling this offseason that so many players came out in defense of Dennis Allen. As far as, we're going to play for this man. We have no problems here, et cetera, et cetera. I found it, and I know you did too, found it hilarious at the time that the fans that wanted rid of Dennis Allen, it's only a lukewarm or a half-ass, backing of the coach. So it really doesn't mean anything. Now you got to listen to the words here. These are professional football players in the day and age of society where throwing someone under the bus so that way you can deflect blame, is really the in thing to do. And these players did not take that opportunity. So I think they're ready to play for Dennis Allen. And I think they all realize that the success of Dennis Allen also means the success of them. And for guys like Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, Demario Davis, it might be their last legitimate shot. For guys like Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, Marshawn Lattimore, they're playing for a big or a bigger contract. Mm-hmm. So they need this to be successful, and the fact that Dennis Allen is still there in charge, they need Dennis Allen to be successful for them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, the advantage of a guy like what Dennis Allen is doing right now, and I agree with you, I don't think he will ever be the kind of coach that we want him to be. We enjoyed Petty Payton because we were winning first off, but we have been, as a franchise and fans of this franchise, been the laughing stock for so long, and teams just trashing us all the time that we wanted to have the payback of coming after them and making fun of these guys and being petty, running up the score if we could, doing all those things because so many teams seem to do that to us. We didn't have a winning season until 1987, which everyone knows this, I know, but that's 21 years of losing football, and people still call the Saints the Aints, even though they were the Aints 1 year, 1980. But they look at the Saints as a pathetic joke of a franchise, and they think the only way they won a Super Bowl was because the league felt bad for them for Katrina, some foolishness like that. So, absolutely, we wanted to see Petty Payton. We wanted to see Petty Payton come out and show these teams that, you know what, you're the team who I'm laughing at. You're the fan base we're laughing at. And Allen is kind of the throwback to the nice guy now. Okay, we're going to get along with everybody. We want to be part of this league, and I want to show respect. And we're not the kind of team that does. And fans don't want to hear that. Not after 16 years of Peyton. Not after Peyton talking about, man, it was such a great ride to be head coach. We beat the Falcons my first home game. We beat the Falcons my last home game as a head coach. I mean, the fans ate that up because you talk like a fan, whereas Allen talks like the mouthpiece of a league.
Yeah.
And that's what bothers people. That really does. So you kind of had something going on? Something going on, Bob?
No, I'm just changing the channels on the TV.
I got you. Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say. So you had the league come out, or a media story come out. I'm sorry, and rank the coaches, best coach to worst coach, and Dennis Allen was once again at the bottom of the list, just like the Saints are at the bottom of the list again, and all the same old stuff. Do you think he's one of the worst coaches in the NFL?
No. Well, the worst, no. Just off the top of my head, I would put him somewhere in the 20 to 25 range, based off what we've seen and what we've seen throughout the rest of the league. And to be frank with you, I don't know whether that's an indictment on Dennis Allen or an indictment on how generally bad I think coaching is in the National Football League right now.
I think it's the latter. I really do.
I kind of feel like it is. You've quoted this many a time on both Twitter and Facebook. Dennis Allen's not even the worst coach in Saints history. Probably not even top three. Definitely not top three. Maybe not top five. But I mean, if you're looking at the league today, I would put him probably between 20 and 25. Yeah, most likely closer to 25, but definitely not 32 or anywhere in the bottom 3 or 4 of the league.
Well, he's not getting fired this year unless the bottom falls out. And
Right.
the team is really a bad football team with a lot of losses. He wins anywhere from 7 to 11 games. He's coming back.
Oh, yeah.
I think you don't hire a whole new offensive coaching staff and go through free agency and the draft the way they did, where we're going to clean up the cap and we're going to be very conservative in the draft. If your plan is to torpedo your coach that year, because honestly, you were basically saying, you know what, we're giving you a mulligan this year. We expect at least 7 wins. We think you have the talent to win 7 games, but we're not going. It's not playoffs or bust. It's not. Oh, that's just you coach just good enough. Whereas I thought in previous years it was kind of playoff or bust, or you better win this division. I think they expect to win. I think the front office and the coaching staff think that we have the capability of winning this division. We don't think we're that much worse than anybody else in this division. We acknowledge that Tampa is going to be a challenge. We may acknowledge that Atlanta may be a challenge. We don't acknowledge Carolina is going to be a challenge for anything. But at the same time, we're not going, okay, if you somehow squeak into the playoffs as a division winner or a wild card team and you lose in the first round, you're fired.
No.
That's not going to happen. To me, I think if you miss the playoffs for the 3rd straight year because you've won 6 or 7 games, that might be some heat on you. But they also are going to look at the schedule, look at how you finish, the whole thing. It's going to be very patient. These are the 7 and 9 kind of seasons with Sean Payton, essentially. I think next year's draft class, they're going to expect a lot out of. They're counting on getting more picks and having more cap room. So, they're going to expect more talent to be put in this team. But that doesn't mean that guys like Lattimore and Kamara and all on the way out. It's just there's a broader picture, a broader plan being put together that we just don't see the whole thing of right now. And I certainly think that you look around the league, you look at the guys who got hired this past year. Quinn got hired. Just Raheem Morris is back in the league. I'm sorry. These are guys that I'm just like, that's not an upgrade over Dennis Allen. It really isn't. Maybe Ben Johnson is, but after Ben Johnson, you're pretty hard pressed to come up with a guy who is somebody you can go, okay, that's the new hot coordinator. That's going to be the new Sean McVay or the new pick your coach du jour.
I agree with you to a certain point. I certainly don't believe that the organization, the front office, is looking for a reason to fire Dennis Allen. And I say it that way because we see a lot of franchises come into a season with exactly that mindset. But I don't think this team, I agree with you that I don't think this team needs an extended playoff run or necessarily even needs double-digit wins for Dennis Allen to keep his job. They are prepared for the long game, but if something funky, I certainly agree that if the bottom drops out and they top out at 5-6 wins or worse, you have to make a move. You have to.
Yeah.
But also, if they come in at 7 or 8 wins, but there's still a regression, whether it's in quarterback play or say the defense got really old all of a sudden, you could see that possibility. Mm-hmm. If one of those kind of things happen, the defense is what Dennis Allen's forte is. If that collapses on you, then why the hell do you need to keep him around? If the quarterback, handpicked by Dennis Allen, has a bad regression, I think you make a move because I've said for a while now that Dennis Allen, Derek Carr are tied together like the Titanic and the iceberg. Uh, so yeah, if you see regressions in that way, and you top out at even 7, 8 wins, but miss the playoffs, I think they do make a move there. That's where I'll disagree. But they're not looking to make a move, even if if Carr gives them the same kind of play he did last year, and the defense, everything remains on course. As frustrating as that would be to Saints fans, I think the front office, whether we agree with it or not, would grasp at that's still progress. He's still the guy we want for our end game. We have draft picks coming next year to continue to clean up our cap situation, and we're going to stay the course.
Yeah, and you look at what they did on these contracts, these players, like a Chase Young and a William Gay. They're letting these guys gamble that this is the year you're going to prove to the rest of the league that you're worth a lot of money, and either to the Saints or some other team.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of the front office kind of set up a lot of incentives to be a better team, to be a more productive team. We got you the coaching staff you wanted. You got the quarterback you wanted. This quarterback seems to be embracing this offense. It seems to be an offense that's, your quarterback, the guys you're picking are guys that, as coaches, are guys that seem to be the kind of quarterback they could do something with, So it's not like I want to say, I said the word mulligan, and that's probably not accurate. I should have said, we expect you to progress. We don't expect you to regress, but progress may not show up in the record,
right?
But we want to see progress out of this, and I think that's really what this team is going to do. And the Murderers Row, the first half of the season, schedule-wise, sets it up for if you go on a 7-win run, 8-win run, from October on, that is going to be the kind of thing where they're saying that's progress.
Mm-hmm.
Fans are going to hate it because they're like, yeah, you stunk against the winning teams when you're playing
right.
all the losers. You're beat, but you got to beat those guys.
Mm-hmm.
The losing teams don't beat those guys. So yeah, it's. I'm optimistic though. I feel like this is going to be a better team than last year, just because even though you got the same players, I think you're going to have better coaching, and I think Allen knows that too. He is going to be a better coach because he's got to be. He can't be Sean Payton, but he's got to be the guy who at least is the CEO of the team, instead of being the guy who is trying to be hands-on in everything like he was before. So we talked a little about Lattimore. Let's talk about Kamara a little bit, because Kamara's been in. I thought he was in Africa. I thought he went to Africa with his mom. I'm hearing other things, but Kamara's back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he came. He missed the OTAs, but he showed up for this minicamp, and he seemed really excited. What do you think is going to happen, Kamara, this year versus what we saw the past couple of years?
I think we're going to see a very motivated, very excitable Alvin Kamara all year long. Because again, the way he is going to be used is a ton different from the way Pete Carmichael used him the last 2 years, the way Sean Payton used him his final year. I believe Kamara is going to be used in a very similar way to the way Christian McCaffrey was used in San Francisco, and rightfully so. These two players have almost identical skill sets. I will die on this hill saying that Alvin Kamara is a better receiving back than what Christian McCaffrey is. I realize that the numbers don't show that, but you also have to be realistic and look at the last 3 years. And Pete Carmichael must have forgot how good a receiver Alvin Kamara was, because he stopped using him, unless it was on check downs, or the occasional naked screen, where he thought he was throwing the ball to Barry Sanders out there with no blockers and 8 defenders. But skill wise, I believe Alvin Kamara can do more as a pass receiver than what Christian McCaffrey can. And I think that I believe that Clint Kubiak is going to see that, and I believe Clint Kubiak is going to use that. And we heard Kamara mention it after one of the games last year, about how would he rather get the ball, and he didn't mince words. He said, I'd rather get the ball as a receiver or in open space because there aren't as many guys trying to hit me. And I think that's logic speaking right there. That's any human logic speaking right there. Yeah, and I always come back to football 101. You get the ball to your best players in ways that highlight their best attributes. Alvin Kamara's best attribute is and always has been in space. Kubiak has an outside zone blocking scheme that will highlight those skills as a runner, and he's shown not only with McCaffrey, but the system itself, the Kubiak Shanahan system, has a long history of using their backs as receivers. And not just out of the backfield. I think we're going to see, Kamara used very similarly to the way Sean Payton used him his first 2 and 3 years in the league. I'm excited for it, and it really seems like Alvin is excited for it too.
Yeah, Kamara was, and I've been watching a lot of the 2018 season. I don't know why. I just want to torture myself, I guess. But watching the 2018, 2019 seasons, and I'm sorry, 2017, 2018 seasons, Kamara is kind of on a Hall of Fame pace for a while. And then these past couple of years have really cooled that. I feel like you're going to see Kamara more of that Pro Bowl back that we saw the first few years he was in the league. You're going to see him get used out in space. You're going to see him get outside on people. Again, it all depends on the blocking, but I really think that the blocking is better than it has been. Just because I think these players, they've got, these coaches have a plan, they've got a scheme, and they're going to get players that fit that scheme and not just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. We're going to just run Alvin up the middle, off tackle, like he is George Rogers here or something, and I just feel like with Jamal Williams, who had a very disappointing year last year, I think you're going to see Jamal Williams used a lot better this time around. You're going to see more of, if he can stay healthy, Condre Miller doing a lot in this offense instead of running the one screen pass and then, I guess that was a really good play. Yeah, we're not going to run it again tonight. That was a good play. We're going to run it one time.
When you made that comment earlier, early in the show about Carmichael, one play is going to, one play is really successful, but you throw it out of the playbook anyway. That's the exact play that I had in mind as the words were coming out of your mouth.
Yeah, I mean the screen passes to him, and then all of a sudden, we're not going to run that anymore. We're done with that. We don't want to get you too excited there, Saints fan. And it really is. It's. I just feel like these three running backs, they're going to find ways to manufacture yards for these guys. They're going to do. They're not just going to sit there and beat their head against the wall and try and make it work, because it used to work with Ingram and Chris Ivory and Robinson, and you just pick the running back, so we're going to make it work this time too. Well, we're not going to do that this time. We're going to come up with plays that we think will work And if our offensive line is bad, we're going to figure out ways to overcome that, more than just max protect.
Yeah. Now, yeah, you said something there, and I'm going to give Pete Carmichael a tiny pass. For the way Kamara was used for in the last 2 years anyway, for this reason. As you know, um, they they didn't really have another viable threat outside of Taysom Hill. When Taysom Hill lined up in the backfield, you knew what was coming. They didn't really have another viable threat since Mark Ingram left. You had that 1 year with Latavius Murray, and then he kind of fell by the wayside. But since then, and even with Kendre Miller hurt most of last year, and Jamal Williams extremely ineffective, mostly because of the blocking. If you did bring Kamara out of the backfield, line him up in the slot, line him up out wide, that basically telegraphed what you were going to do. So there were at least some situations where I could give Carmichael a pass, and saying that you were limited in what you could do with Kamara, because he was your only viable backfield weapon. Now that's not the case. Again, you need the blocking up front, but Jamal Williams certainly needs to play better. Kendre Miller certainly needs to stay healthy. But if all those things happen, this system, like you said, has a history of manufacturing yards, has a history of productive backs that have come out of nowhere. Olandis Gary, Arian Foster, Raheem Mostert. I mean, we listed the names ad nauseum last week. Yes. Again, most defensive coordinators knows what this system can do. And as long as Jamal Williams, Kendre Miller can be productive, in their roles, as long as the offensive line can block, and come together, then in that case, that does give you options to use Kamara out of the backfield, to use Miller out of the backfield, because I think he's a good receiver too. I think we're going to see a lot more of that this year. So, I'll give Pete a little bit of a devil's advocate pass.
Yeah, and I did during the season. I said, there were some limitations that the Saints obviously had because of the blocking problems and things like that. But what was aggravating was they couldn't figure out, or they weren't imaginative enough to figure out, how do I compensate for this?
Right.
How do I figure out, okay, I have to run max protect. Why don't I run a moving pocket? Or why don't I just, try and get, Carr get the ball out of his hand faster? And he seemed to figure it out in spurts, but not over the long haul. I thought the Rams game was a great example of how long it took him to figure out what we can do to make things work. And by that time, it was too late in the game.
Right.
But you spent the whole first 3 quarters sitting there trying to figure out, how can I first off avoid Carr getting killed, but secondly, how do I figure out to get this offense going? And he just didn't have a clue. He really didn't. So, I would agree with what you said, but I'm also like, but Carmichael was on you to figure out how to make something happen.
Yes.
And I think he failed miserably at that. And that's why the other thing I'm going to give Allen credit for, we've seen for too long teams like the Saints and coaches like the Saints have had in the past, they held on to coaches out of feelings of loyalty and saying, well, they'll figure it out. We just got to get better players and they'll figure it out. And Allen is, to his credit, said, you know what? I didn't like the way the defense played 2 years ago. I got a new defensive staff. I don't like the way this offense is playing. I got a new offensive staff. And that, even Sean had a hard time letting go, letting go, the special teams coordinator that he held on for too long. And the Saints really struggle because of that, So Allen at least is willing to say, hey, this doesn't work. We got to figure out a way to make this work. So I'm going to give him credit for that.
Yeah.
Just like you want to give Carmichael a little bit of credit, I'm going to give Allen credit for getting guys, having a plan. This is what I want to do. now we got to see if this will work. You know, there was something else I wanted to bring up, and I forgot. I had my little list for the teaser for the show. There's some tryout guys coming to this mini camp too. Russell Gage is probably the biggest name player out of that. What does that tell you? They're still bringing in tryout guys.
I mean, most NFL teams do. You know this.
Yeah.
It doesn't smack of desperation at any specific position. I tell you, I would like to see them bring in a couple bigger name safeties. Personally, a couple decent name offensive linemen still out there, and they aren't bringing them in. It might tell me more by the names they're not bringing in than by the fact that they're bringing in players. I expect you and I both expected a little bit more competition at the receiver spot, and that's all Russell Gage is. I'm not saying he will or won't make the team.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like the fit if he's healthy, but it's only going to be to push A.T. Perry to be better, to push Bub Means or Cedric Wilson to earn roster spots. I'm not going to sit here and say, Russell Gage is going to be, this year's primary slot target, because although he is a good slot receiver, that's far from the case. And the other guys, I hate using the word camp bodies because they're all technically camp bodies.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, what to you, coin one of your favorite sayings, they're just kind of throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. Maybe they get a player out of this. Maybe they don't. But you see every NFL team do this at minicamp. You see every NFL team do this early in training camp, and it won't be the last round of tryouts that we see the Saints shoot for.
I'm with you. I'm a little disappointed they're not bringing in more offensive linemen, veteran offensive linemen. I'm disappointed that they haven't brought any safeties in. We saw Marcus May get signed by the Dolphins, I think.
Marcus May on the streets of Miami is going to be entertainment value in itself.
Yeah. There's still good safeties out there,
mm-hmm.
and they're just sitting on their hands with this. And I can't believe they're satisfied with what they have, because I get it. You're all about Howden. But Matthew is a leader on the team, and you're probably going to roll with a Howden Matthew starting tandem, but your depth is next to non-existent.
Yeah.
Unless you have in your back pocket this idea that you're going to move Alontae Taylor to safety at some point, make him a free safety or something. Allen was adamant about that. And we spent last week talking about how good Allen has been at coaching defensive backs. So you want to trust him, but at the same time, I don't trust that depth at all.
No, I don't feel comfortable with it at all. Not, like you said, that they're in love with Jordan Howden. I would have liked to see more consistent play out of a rookie before you just hand him the starting job the following year. But that's me. I think Will Harris could be a sneaky underrated signing. He knows the scheme because he played for Aaron Glenn in Detroit. That's the good part. The bad part is he played for Aaron Glenn in Detroit. That secondary was awful last year.
Mm-hmm.
And even though Allen has said repeatedly that they don't view Alontae Taylor as a safety, you've got to believe that Taylor or McKinstry, they're eyeing up to be the primary slot nickel guy.
Yeah.
Because Jonathan Abram they're in love with too. I don't see that for the life of me, but at least Abram can be your in the box safety. Maybe they see Howden as a guy that you can move around. Will Harris adds a little bit of scheme versatility, and at least to me, at this point in his career, Tyrann Mathieu needs to be a deep safety. he's lost too much to be able to be consistently reliable in the slot. So we're used to seeing, especially at the safety position, the Von Bells, the Marcus Williams, either the ball hawks on the back end or the Malcolm Jenkins, the extra linebacker type of safety in the box, or a Von Bell guy that you can move around. Maybe this is kind of a different secondary with more defined roles. A Will Harris, a Alontae Taylor in the slot. Tyrann Mathieu is a deep guy. Jordan Howden is a guy you move around. I don't know. This is just speculation on my part, because I don't see a guy just like you. I don't see a guy, let alone multiple guys, that can play several roles in the secondary.
Yeah, I just, I feel like they're just, hi, Ollie. I have my daughter's dog who just came in here. This is Ollie Bug. He's a lunatic. He really is. And I'm his favorite person.
You got a co-host?
Yeah, I got a co-host now. So say hi, Ollie. Come over here. You're going to go out. You want to go out? There you go. Go ahead.
Hey, we have to add a cuteness factor, to the show every now and then. Your dog, my dog, Will, somebody to attract attention away from our faces.
Absolutely. So, but yeah, it's. I lost my train of thought here because, yeah, there we go. Come on. Okay. Sorry about that. He came in there and messed up my phone when he came in. So, but anyway, yeah, I just would feel better with more veterans on the team that, like you said, you're not handing someone a job. You're not going, okay, we'll sign somebody off the street if someone gets hurt. You're not worried about that kind of stuff. You've got somebody who's been in the system, and you got somebody competing for a job and pushing the rookies or pushing the young guys. I get you want to get younger, but how needs somebody pushing him? If he's in a position where he feels like, I got this, what the hell? That's the kind of play you're going to get out of him.
Yeah.
You're not going to get, I don't know. You're just not going to. I think you could get better play than if you just bring in a Justin Blackham or one of those kind of guys, or you bring in the Green Bay Packers left tackle. Granted, he's beat up, but you bring him in just to push the rookies and teach the rookie how to play left tackle and teach the other guy, Penning, how to play tackle, what to look for. Just having that voice in. We talk so much about leadership out of the coaching staff. You also need leaders on this team.
Yeah.
And I just feel like we're not getting those guys right now. I mean, is that kind of how you feel about this? That they need these leaders, or?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, especially a tackle, offensive line in general. Your elder statesmen are, Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz. And I mean, out of McCoy, I could see that, but Ruiz, if I'm a young player in there, and this was just my mindset as a player, if I'm a young player in the room, I don't know what kind of message I'm going to be able to trust from Cesar Ruiz, who hasn't been able to do it himself throughout his career. And then you look at Nick Saldiveri, second year, didn't play last year. Trevor Penning, essentially his second year because of injury, got benched last year. Fuaga is a rookie, and you don't have Landon Young's been around for a couple years, but as a backup, never able to grab a hold of a starting job. You don't have any voices there, unlike say at defensive end, where an Isaiah Foskey can learn from a Cam Jordan, from a Carl Granderson. A Jalen Ford, rookie linebacker, can learn from a Demario Davis, From Pete Werner. McKinstry can learn from Lattimore, Adebo. At safety, you do have Tyrann Mathieu to bring Howden along, but unlike the other positions, if Jalen Ford doesn't pan out right away, you still have Willie Gay, you still have Pete Werner. If Isaiah Foskey doesn't pan out right away, you still got Chase Young, you hope, Carl Granderson. You don't have that fallback plan at tackle. You don't have that fallback plan at safety. And those continue to be the two positions everybody with working brain cells is worried about.
Well, it's funny because you were talking about those guys. I've been reading that Pete Werner's having a good OTA, good minicamp, and I think it's part of the reason is he sees Willie Gay on the team. He knows Willie Gay is looking for his job.
Sure.
Tyrann Mathieu is not threatening Howden's job.
No.
He is can be a coach and help him, but it's not like they're going to say, well, we're going to bench you and put Mathieu in your spot. No, that's suicide. You don't put Mathieu down in the slot. Down in the box and expect him to take on these offensive linemen. You're not going to do that. So yeah, that's the difference, though. You want to have guys to come in who push these younger guys and make them play better because there's the threat that there's the I've seen enough moment where they go, I'm going to him because I've seen you screw up enough. Trevor Penning went through that last year.
Yeah.
You need to understand you're going to have players that you have seen enough of out there and that you need guys to push them to replace those guys so they don't feel like I can take this play off, I can take this down off, or whatever it is. And the leaders can lead in the locker room, but you also need veteran guys in there who are pushing all these guys. And that's the part that really bothers me. That doesn't mean they won't sign anybody.
Right.
But I would feel a lot better if they did already.
Right. Well, and we've seen that exact scenario play out at wide receiver. All of us, myself included, are assuming A.T. Perry is going to be the 2B or number 3 guy. But the Saints, even with losing Michael Thomas, they didn't just concede that to Perry. They signed Cedric Wilson, who has been a 2 and a 3 receiver. They brought in Russell Gage, who has been a 2 and a 3 receiver. Equanimous St. Brown has been a 3-4 guy. Bub Means was drafted in the 4th, 5th round. So there is competition for Perry to push Perry, to make Perry earn more reps. Earn more responsibility and earn a bigger role.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I'm looking for. I could be wrong, and you could sign a guy and he's going to get 2D Robbins to Willie Roaf, but I don't feel like we drafted Willie Roaf. I think we drafted a very good tackle, but I don't think we drafted Willie Roaf. And for you guys who don't know what the hell I'm talking about, 2D Robbins was the tackle they brought in from. He played for Green Bay. He played for the Cardinals. He was a journeyman offensive tackle. He was the guy they brought in to make Willie Roaf wait behind. Mm-hmm. And it took about 3 practices before Willie Roaf took the job from him because that's how good he was. But, yeah, you still protected yourself. And I feel like they need to protect themselves in some other positions. Yep. If Howden gets hurt, we're in trouble because I think the longer Abrams out there, I think the longer that Will Harris is out there, if you're going to make a position switch now and put Alontae Taylor out there at safety, I think that's just going to be a lot of growing pains for these guys. And I'm just throwing Alontae Taylor out there. They may not have any plans to turn him into a safety, but I'm just throwing him out there as somebody they want to figure out a way to get him on the field. They're going to want to have all 4 defensive backs, Lattimore, Adebo, McKinstry, and Taylor out there at some point. And they got to figure out how they're going to do that. And the way you're going to do that is Taylor's got to play safety. Mm-hmm. You're not putting Lattimore or Debo out there. And, McKinstry, you want him at the slot because he's played the slot.
Mm-hmm.
So, process of elimination, if I'm going to put somebody out there who seems to be a ball hawk, and that's what Taylor's reputation has been, maybe he becomes a single high safety. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm just saying that's just an idea that if I'm just spitballing, and that's what I'm doing right now, I just feel like if you're going to figure out a way to get him on the field, that's the way you get him on the field. That's why you made him a nickelback. And guys like John Sigler were beating their head against the wall because he's not a nickelback. He can't cover on the inside. But he's too good to keep on your bench.
Right.
You got to figure out where to put somebody like that. So
yeah, I completely agree. And guys like John Sigler, and I've known Sig for a while. I respect him. I like him. A friend of mine. But I agree with, or I disagree with him there. Him and other people with that thought process. Yeah, Alontae Taylor did not have a good completion percentage, a good rating, in slot coverage. But he played a lot better towards the end of the season. They used him a lot differently. Joe Woods and Dennis Allen did. We saw him blitz a lot more, create some more havoc, just able to use those ball skills that he has that you mentioned by, playing a little bit of a PJ Williams role with him, pulling him off the ball, letting him see the play, and only letting him, when he really struggled was being asked to play press man out of the slot. Well, even as a rookie, as good a rookie year as he had, he filled in for Lattimore, for those 10, 11 games that that Lat missed as an outside corner and played pretty well. But Taylor still had problems playing press man against the shifty receivers, the kind of guys that you'd see in the slot. So really, there's no difference, not a great difference from the rookie Alontae Taylor to the second year, other than you asked him to learn a new position. So of course there are going to be bumps in the road. Listen, there are plenty of defensive backs, Hall of Fame defensive backs that started their career as a cornerback and transitioned to safety. Ronnie Lott, Rod Woodson, Malcolm Jenkins started as was a cornerback at Ohio State. I think Von Bell, by the time Vaughn left Ohio State, he was a safety, but he started it at Ohio State as a cornerback. So you kind of get where I'm going here. Of course, the difference with those guys is they were told, or maybe they volunteered. I don't know. In Rod Woodson's case, he volunteered, but there was plenty of notice. That this move was coming, be it player's choice or coach's decision. Not Dennis Allen saying, "Oh, he's a quarterback, he's a cornerback, he's a cornerback." Boom! Now he's a safety. You can't do it that way.
Yeah. Well, Dave Waymer was somebody else
That's a good one. Yeah.
And he became a safety for the Saints. And generally, what happens is guys who play corner and get turned into safety. Usually it's because they've lost a step,
right?
As in Rob Woodson's case, or they weren't that great at cover guys like a Ronnie Lott. They were hitters. They were guys that could blitz well. They were guys who were enforcers in the backfield, and they were ball hawks. They were smart enough to make breaks in the ball because they could see the plays open up. And I feel like maybe that's where Taylor's strength is, because like you said, he struggled with shifty receivers even on the outside. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have great speed, but he has great ball awareness. He can break on a ball. And I had forgotten about that, but they started lining him up and blitzing him off the edge, and he was on those quarterbacks in no time. So again, it's things that I think that would work for him. But I'm not saying that's going to happen now. I'm just saying the way they're leaving the safety position right now makes me think that they've got to have some idea of what they want to do. And the only thing I can come up with is Alontae Taylor getting used more as a safety, a hybrid safety cornerback, maybe. just something to that effect. So anyway, that's going to be something to watch. That's more what you're going to see more of come training camp,
Yeah.
I think. Once they put the pads on, where they put guys, we have not seen him do that at all in minicamp or in training camp or even this OTAs and stuff. So it'll be unlike the moving Penny to right tackle and Fuaga to left tackle. This is something that we have not seen kind of evidence of. So again, we're just spitballing, but it's something to watch. Bob, you didn't have the Bayou Blitz last week. Are you going to have a Bayou Blitz show tonight or tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah, we are going to have a Bayou Blitz this week. My anger has subsided, and I'll leave it at that. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But due to Brendan's scheduling conflicts, we cannot have it tomorrow night. So Bayou Blitz will be on Thursday night. He didn't ask me to switch the time, so I'm assuming we're going to run at 8 p.m. Central Time. It's just going to be on Thursday instead of Wednesday this week.
I think I'm going to start referring to myself as Mr. McGee, so you can say, Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
We're getting there.
Bob's going to come in a ripped up shirt one day and a tinge of green. Thank you guys for sticking with us. It looks like me running this through the iPad is a hell of a lot better. Let me know if the sound isn't very good. I went looking for a microphone this weekend and run through my iPad, and I really just need to break down and go to Best Buy and start looking at stuff. And I don't like going to Best Buy anymore, but I just need to go in there and go find a good microphone so you guys can hear me well. But it seems to be flowing a lot better. I'm not seeing interruptions. I'm not seeing all the things that I was having problems with my laptop. So I'll keep trying to go this way, and we'll keep building on the show. In the meantime, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.
Night.